Hey everyone, it's Andy from Figment, and I'm joined today with Alexia and Kossi, and we're here to talk about the launch of the Tezos Learn Pathway. And so today's talk is geared towards people who are developers or who want to become developers, and we're going to talk about how you can get introduced to Tezos, some of the key concepts, and start coding against it. And so I'll quickly let Alexia and Kossi introduce themselves, and then we'll go into a quick demo. So Alexia, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Thank you, Andy. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So as you know, my name is Alexia. I work within the adoption team of Nomadic Labs. Adoption meaning that we're trying to push the adoption and the use of the Tezos protocol. In the case of Nomadic Labs, we work mostly in France, in Belgium and Luxembourg. But as you know, like Tezos has a global community, which we'll get later into detail. For Kossi?
Okay, thank you. I'm Kossi. I'm also glad to be here today. I'm in the Nomadic Labs support team. Support team means we help corporate structures like Casino, BDF, Logical Pictures with their projects on Tezos by reviewing codes, editing documentation for non-developers to help them easily understand how the protocol works. And we give also assistance for individual developers through the Slack channels and all the Tezos Stack exchange.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. So excited to be chatting with you guys today. What I want to do next is go into a quick demo of what the Learn platform is and how people can use it to learn about Tezos. And then we'll get into some questions. So if people have questions along the way, go ahead and there's a little section at the bottom called Ask a Question. Put them in there, and we have moderators in the chat, and they'll help answer as we go, and we'll address some of them live at the end as well. So I'm going to share my screen and go into a quick demo, and then we'll get into some Q&A. Okay, here we go. Okay, can you see my screen now? I have a little Google Doc presentation up.
Yes.
We can.
Okay, great. So we're going to chat about two things today: Figment Learn and Tezos, and how you can use Figment Learn to learn about Tezos. So we created Figment Learn because as you become a developer in Web3, you start to feel a few pains of building on these protocols. There's no standard place for documentation. You know, in a world where we're moving towards decentralization, it's hard to find the sort of source of truth for some things like developer docs. And so we wanted to create a place where people could go to sort of find the source of truth for all these different protocols. And that's the other thing we wanted to do is, in addition to having a really good place to have Tezos docs, we want to make it easy for you to compare other protocols so you can see the unique things that Tezos has to offer. So that's why we started building Learn as sort of this Web3 knowledge base, a key place where you can go and find out all these things about the protocol and compare protocols to each other. The next thing we heard from our users and from our community of developers was, this is great, but I want more interaction. I want to learn through a set of tutorials how these things work. Can you help guide me through all these different things about learning about Tezos? Can you guys still see my screen okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So what we did is we moved beyond this knowledge base to actually having something active, and the community started creating tutorials. And we sort of put those tutorials together into this concept called a pathway. And so the idea of a pathway is you can go from having no knowledge about a protocol within 5 or 6 steps to deploying a smart contract or interacting with the blockchain, submitting transactions. And what we did is we realized a lot of the developers who were learning about these blockchains didn't have any tokens to get started playing with it. If you want to learn about how staking works, you need some tokens to stake with. And so we created this structure called a pathway where you can go through a series of steps. At the end of it, if you complete all the steps and you complete all the coding, you actually can earn tokens. And so that's one way we're trying to help get more developers learning about protocols and also getting some initial tokens to get started, deploying the first smart contract to mainnet. In addition, we wanted to give opportunities for the community to even create new tutorials. So here's the dollars and cents behind it. if you go through the steps in this Tezos pathway we're going to describe today, complete all the tutorials, you can earn $20 in tokens at the end. If you go and then take that knowledge further and extend it and create a new tutorial, we'll pay you $500 in Tezos tokens for adding to the community, for creating new tutorials for people to use. And so what I want to do today now is show you what this looks like. We'll start from having nothing to going all the way through the tutorial. I'm not going to complete it live with you. We have a great community Discord where if you get stuck, you can ask questions. We have videos where it walks through all the steps, and we have tons of documentation and code. But I just want to show you what it looks like and how that would work. So the thing to do, the first place to go is to go to this website here, which is Figment Learn. So if you can put this in the chat, Yash, it's learn.figment.io. And what you'll see here is this is where I mentioned the Web3 knowledge base. There's all sorts of docs here for all sorts of different networks, and it's in a standard place. We're really going to focus on Tezos today, and we're launching the Tezos Pathway today. So that's the key focus. So right on the homepage here, you see the new Tezos Pathway. So you want to go to Learn, scroll down, and go to the Tezos Pathway. Once you're here, the first thing you'll want to do is the first step in our process, I should say, is you need to connect to a Tezos node. You need to be able to query or submit transactions somewhere. And we've made that super easy for you by hosting a bunch of Tezos nodes in our service called Datahub. So we're on a website called Learn right now, but also if you click this button and go over to Datahub, you can sign up and get free access to Tezos nodes. And so here's what that looks like. Here's my Datahub dashboard. You can see a bunch of different networks are in there. If you just go and sign up and click Tezos, you'll be taken right to this link here. You'll see two things. You'll see a link to the mainnet node, and you'll see a link to the testnet, the Florence net. And both those are available for you. And you can do up to 100,000 requests per day, and it's totally free. And for the use of this pathway, everything you'll be doing is free. And so you start on Learn, you go to Datahub, sign up for a free account, and then you can see here's your tutorials. And if you've ever done test-driven development or have ever sort of got the green check as you complete the code, this is kind of the idea here. So you go in and click Start, and when you click Start, it takes you right exactly to the tutorial you need to be at. Step number one, connect to a Tezos node. And you'll see here, there are some things that would be helpful to know if you know how JavaScript works. If you have Node installed, that'd be very helpful. And so we have extra guides about installing Node and having that set up, but those are really the only things you need to know how to do. So if you've never programmed, it's still doable. If you have programmed, you'll have a much easier time. But we guide you through step-by-step of creating directories, setting up your repo, and then describing all sorts of code along the way with block diagrams. And so the idea here is we want to give you both the concepts of what's going on and also the code behind it. And so the goal is after you go through this tutorial and you click submit, you come back to Datahub here, and then you want to verify that you've done the work correctly. So you click verify, and this will schedule a verification. It takes a couple minutes for you to get verified, and it will either say success, move on to step number 2, or it will give you errors and give you pointers to where you actually got stuck. And so if you do get stuck, there's a couple things you can do. One, we'll provide a link in the error right to our Discord community. So if you want to join our Discord, we have an active Tezos channel where people are talking all the time about Tezos and about this pathway and about how people can get going. And so don't worry, if you're stuck, it's okay. We're here to help. In addition, we'll be releasing videos for this as well, so you can see what people are doing. So that's the main thing I wanted to share with you is that we have these tutorials already written. They're comprehensive. There's lots of different ways to dive in, including code, concepts and diagrams. And then as you go through it, you can verify your progress. Once you get through all 5 steps, then on every Friday, we'll send out tokens to the people who completed the steps. And if you want to extend your knowledge, you can go further and create tutorials for the community, and we'll pay $500 in tokens for that. So that's the end of the demo, but I wanted to show you how quickly and easy it is to get started. You want to start at learn.figment.io. As you go through, you'll create your free account on Datahub, which is your access to the free nodes, and that's where you can go through and verify your tutorial. And if you get stuck, we have a Discord community with thousands of people in it ready to help. So that's the end of my demo, and we'll go from here. I'll stop sharing my screen, and we'll go from here into some Q&A with Alexia and Kossi. So, okay, let's come back. Alexia and Kossi, are you both ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay, very good. Let's let's start with a high level question. I talked about how people can learn about Tezos, but can you give me the pitch? What for the developers who are listening today? Can you give the quick pitch for developers? What makes Tezos special? What kind of things can you do with it?
Absolutely. So what makes us different essentially are 4 points, which we usually introduce to people who do not know Tezos. Essentially, as you may or may not know, Tezos is a public permissionless blockchain with what we call a liquid proof of stake, so a proof of stake based consensus algorithm, which is seen as more greener than other alternatives such as the proof of work one. Tezos also has an on-chain governance mechanism. And finally, we have what we call the ability to perform formal verification on our smart contracts, thanks to our smart contracts language, which is called Michelson. So perhaps, if Kossi, you're okay with it, I can jump on the first 2 points. So the fact the public permissionless point, which basically means that everyone can participate. So Tezos is open. And the idea of, again, having a liquid proof of stake consensus algorithm is a criteria that we see is very important in the context of some projects that we are currently putting in place with some actors that we work with in the ecosystem, because of that notion of eco-friendliness. And so we're actually seeing that we're getting lots of traction, for example, in the NFT environment, thanks to that, because as you know, like artists they're usually like very, eco-friendly, or at least they have that factor that comes into play. And what's important to understand about liquid proof of stake, it's that it is different than the classic DPoS, the delegated proof of stake, and just the classic proof of stake mechanism. So in liquid proof of stake, you can become a baker by just having a minimal stake of 8,000 XTZ, or you can delegate your XTZ to a baker without losing the ownership of your XTZ. So again, it's different than DPoS, where the stakeholders have to vote to choose a block validator, and thus that limiting the decentralization of the network. As an example, in DPoS, typically you would have at most 100 block validators, whereas in Tezos we have more than 400.
Wow.
Kossi, let you take the lead on on-chain governance.
Yes, sure. To talk more about on-chain governance, we can say that that considerably reduce the risk of hard forks through a process of amendment of the protocol in 5 stages. So we have the proposal stage, the exploration stage, the cooldown, the promotion, and the adoption phase. So this process, known as the Tezos amendment process, entirely take place on chain, and so every stakeholders can participate to the vote process. For the formal verification with Michelson, we all know that when we deploy smart contracts, we have to perform a battery of tests to ensure that they do not contain bugs, and that they perform the tasks for which they were created for. So, however, this is not sufficient for some use case, and it seems risky to rely on tests that cannot be exhaustive. So the idea of the formal verification is then to find a way to transform these smart contracts using certified smart contracts on Tezos framework calling Mishokok, and to ensure that can be translated to Michelson to a native language of Kok. And the Kok is the formal proof assistant that we use for that. I don't know if it's okay for you.
Oh, yes, sorry. I didn't realize I was on mute. Sorry about that. Yeah, that makes sense. So I like how you broke it down into those 4 points. And I've seen a lot of different DPoS networks, and I think you're right. The liquid proof of stake has a lot more validators. Seems like a very active community of people participating in consensus. So that's great to see. And I have a question about the formal verification, or just the smart contract programming language, which is for people coming from Solidity, what new concepts do they need to understand? Or people coming from, a non blockchain background, what are the sort of new concepts or new things that are available to them using Mickelson or using some of the formal verification tools?
By using the formal verification, they have to see two perspectives. They have to maybe try to know more about the framework we use for certify the smart contracts, the Mission Cronk I just told about, and the assistance, the proof assistance, Cronk, which are the two parts we really use for the native Mickelson formal verification. So the second part, for people who want to know how to build things on Tezos, they have first to go inside of how the protocol works, to know the difference between the principle of mining, which is baking in on Tezos, and know more about the consensus. And they have also to go deep inside the Tezos developer portal to know more about the smart contract language we have, because we have a lot of smart contracts. We help people to not trying to struggle a lot for learning how to build smart contracts. So we have for people who want to, or who are open with Python to use Tezos, to use SmartPy. People who are open to use another language like OKML, and also to use Lego, to use more language like Mickelson, for people who know how to code in Mickelson, Archetypes, and use Haskell-based like Indigo.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that. I think that's going to be some really good things for people coming from other blockchains to learn about, or people new to the space to also check out. So I want to ask a little bit about community. So in the past, we've talked with blockchain foundations before, but today we're talking with Nomadic Labs. And so it seems like Tezos has a different approach to building community. It seems like a very decentralized approach. Can you talk about the strategy for the Tezos community, how you're building it, where you come together, how all that works?
Yep, absolutely. So, well, as you know, like Tezos has a foundation which funds different entities across the world, Nomadic Labs being one of them, located in Paris. And the idea is to try to decentralize our efforts as much as possible, just because we understand that we cannot, from just one base, cover every possible needs for all the possible existing markets. And also because every market will have its own vision and strategy about, a specific vertical within the blockchain ecosystem. So, for example, at Nomadic Labs, we tend to focus on some verticals or we have some specific missions that can differ from teams to teams. We have other teams in Berlin, which focus more on the community, just because of, in Berlin, you have a very strong developer audience. And so hackathons there and the whole, kind of organic positioning makes more sense. But again, we have teams in Africa, in Asia, in India, in the US, Israel, etc., etc. So every team that has a different approach to how it is building the Tezos ecosystem.
Yeah, great. Wow, I didn't realize there was that many teams around the world building. It's really cool. So we mentioned, I mentioned earlier about Solidity. What is the plan to attract developers who are building on other blockchains to look at Tezos? Do you see people moving from Ethereum? Do you see people trying other blockchains then coming to Tezos? What's the idea there? Or would be the pitch to people who maybe deployed a smart contract to the Ethereum main chain what they could do different or what they could do new on Tezos.
Mm-hmm. Kossi, you want to take this one, or should I just go ahead?
I think it's a question for you, but I can go on. For people to attract them to use more Tezos, we can mostly train them to come to our training section at Nomadic Labs research seminars, and we have most importantly risk levels closer for developer community, and to attract them, we can also help them to use our collaborative initiatives such as Open Tezos that are coming. This is a Wikipedia-like approach, so people can add content for Tezos for the Tezos community, and so I can also share my own experience or how I get to Tezos. This is I discovered Tezos in protocol during a 3D immersive training on Tezos, and it was about presenting the protocol, the smart contract development tools, the practice section at Mikkelson's MatPy and Ego. So through this kind of tech training, people can discover how they can build their smart contracts in Tezos and how Tezos works. And we also provide tech training internally, such as lab chains. So for IT managers of large group to get in touch of the Tezos and how to build things on Tezos.
Okay.
Sorry, just another point I would like to mention, and perhaps that's important here, not necessarily just talking about from a community perspective, but the characteristic of on-chain governance that Tezos has is also something that we see usually is appealing to developers, just because they have the possibility to actively participate into the direction that the protocol is going to take. And this is not necessarily something that we see a lot in the ecosystem currently. And it was also something that was brought back in 2014 by Arthur.
Great. Are you still actively doing those training sessions, or is that more something that happened in the past?
We are.
Okay. I found an old subdomain. It was training.nomadic-labs.com. That doesn't seem to be working, and I don't see it on your website. I didn't know if you're still doing those.
No, we do this. So we have kind of a project-based approach to them because we tend to how can I say, design them specifically tailored to the needs of the people that we're going to be interacting with. So far, we do not have one format set, but rather we try to talk to them to see what their interests are, where they want to go, and then tailor the trainings.
And
okay.
To tell more, the last one happened last week. Last week.
Okay, still very active then. That's good. You mentioned earlier about how people in the NFT community are looking at Tezos and some of the coming launches. Like I think Calamint is launching, and there's already a popular NFT marketplace on Tezos. Can you talk a little bit about NFTs and maybe some of the reasons why developers might choose to launch their next marketplace on Tezos, or why an artist might choose to use Tezos to list their NFTs?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think we briefly talked about that when we were talking about the liquid proof of stake protocol. But what we see, at least on Tezos, is that we are having a lot of project builders or artists coming to Tezos just because we have that proof of stake, which they see as a greener alternative when it comes to minting NFTs on Tezos. This is one point. Then indeed, we see a lot of attraction when it comes to the Hikenunk platform, which has been very active lately and which is actually launching a hackathon, a dedicated hackathon in the platform. We have, when it comes to NFTs, we have essentially two positionings. One which is quite open and what we call crypto native, and one which is a little bit more selective or premium. For example, we have another platform which is developed by the teams in the US, which is called Truzy, which is coming, which is actually a curated platform with fiat on ramp, which is very elegant, but again, like kind of has that selective or premiumness to it.
Great. So I will link up. Oh, there he goes. Got the Figment hackathon, and I put the link to the site there. Great. Were you gonna say something for Kossi?
Yes. Maybe I can give a quick explanation of how Tezos manage the NFTs. The NFTs are created based on FA2 standards. This is the equivalent of the Ethereum ERC 1155. So most of the Tezos NFT contracts are implemented on these standards, and it's really easy to build NFTs on Tezos. So the quick and easy way to create this is to use a marketplace like Dagbegnikin, and you just have to connect a wallet like Temple Wallet, and you upload your NFT, and you can just choose the title, a description, a tag, and you put the price for your NFT, and you can issue it. It's that's simple like that.
Yep. Okay. Speaking of that, you mentioned wallets. Do you have any recommendations on different wallets that users could try, or ones that are sort of well respected in the Tezos community?
In the Tezos community, we are trying to be agnostic in front of the use of all the tools. So that's why we have a lot of smart contract language, and this is the same thing we are applying to web wallets. But you have a lot of web wallets on Tezos that you can use, like Temple web wallets, Umami wallets, and so. But we don't have any recommendation specifically. We want the community to choose the free which web wallet they want to use for the project. And most of the web wallets support Tezos FA12 and FA2. So use it freely to interact with the contracts.
Yep. Okay. I want to shift over to the people who are going to be going through the Learn Pathway. The people who are going to start, either coming to Tezos for the first time or trying to complete these tutorials. Do you see anything that people might get stuck on, or any concepts that you see are common pain points for developers that you might want to call out? People or concepts or technical things that people might run into?
In terms of the protocol, the different parts of the protocols.
Yeah.
Well, so from a community perspective, first of all, we see that for a long time, the technical onboarding was not necessarily the clearest, just because of what Kossi mentioned before, our agnosticity when it came to, the tools, which like language to use, etc. And it's actually something that is coming up more and more internally, in which there's that difficulty in finding like a balance in between like guidance and openness.
Right.
We've also faced some challenges when it came to the visibility of our community events, for example, because of the different structuring that we had amongst like the different decentralized teams across the world. That we're working with different working styles, etc. So it took some time to find some sort of equilibrium there. But another interesting point is that we have to keep in mind that Tezos at its early days was designed by researchers, and so it was a very technical project. While you see it with the on-chain governance, you see it with the formal verification. And these were all things that I think took some time to be able to onboard the community with.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I remember when I first saw Tezos, when maybe it was in 2017. I don't remember exactly when. That was my impression of it, which was these things that the way that the blockchain has come to market and the community has grown has been started in a deep research and then sort of decentralization the entire time. As opposed to, some people talk about progressive decentralization. I think it's sort of been pretty idealistic from the beginning, and so that might mean a slower start, but hopefully that pays off in the long run. And so it's pretty exciting to see where you're at now, starting to get some adoption. So that's really, really good to see. We talked a little bit about Nomadic Labs training, and we talked a little bit about Figment Learn, which is for new developers. What other things, have you seen any other programs or places for people looking to start building on Tezos, learning about Tezos? Are there other programs out there that you might want to point to that'd be helpful for people?
We actually have a few. Kossi, you want to give an overview?
Yes, for people who want to begin building on Tezos, you can just focus on the Tezos developers portal. So in this portal, you can see the core infrastructures. You can see the language for building the smart contracts. You can see the tools, the IDE you can use for those language. You can also see the explorers we have for watching the smart contracts, and we have some explorers that help developers to watch correctly the smart contracts and to play with. To see what is building on what others developers build. It's something different from Tezos perspective from the other blockchains.
We also have another initiative that's upcoming, which is called Open Tezos, which will be in the format of like online courses. We have actually had like a few initiatives coming, but we cannot give too much detail since they're not officially out. But stay tuned.
Got it. So we talked a little bit about NFTs. Are there other areas you see coming to Tezos soon? Do you think we'll see more DeFi on Tezos? I've seen some sort of real estate sort of tokenized things on Tezos. Do you think there's other categories or topics like that we'll see more of on Tezos in the future?
So I think you pinpoint the verticals that we are really active in, which are basically tokenization. When we're talking about tokenization, like we can think about different types, such as the tokenization of financial instruments, the tokenization of real estate, or the tokenization of legal entities, which are all things that we have done. We also see a lot of SSI, so self-sovereign identity and certification questions coming up like more and more. But essentially, it's going to be a lot of DeFi coming up, NFT, tokenization, and SSI. Yeah.
Great. I hadn't seen the SSI stuff. That's exciting. I'll definitely be looking forward to that.
Really good stacks. We actually have a really beautiful project in Africa that's called Gravity, that is reusing the existing stack of another project developed in the US that's called Spruce. And the whole aim of the project is to facilitate the financial inclusion of people and entities in Africa. So like these are things that we're trying to push forward.
Got it. Okay. I want to shift now. We got 2 questions in the Q&A. If anyone has any questions you want to add, put them down there. I already answered one. Someone was asking, with what I said at the beginning, with Datahub, which is a hosted node service, are we putting any abstractions on top of the blockchain, or are we going to do something special for Figment? The answer is no. What we're offering right now in Datahub is the standard Tezos RPC. And so we offer that for both mainnet and testnet. If you run your own node, that's great. If you want to use ours, that's great too. All you have to do is switch the URL. So there's nothing custom you have to build into. We are right now just offering the standard APIs. If you look at some of the other projects in Datahub, we have created sort of higher level APIs on top. A very common thing is a user asks, can I search all transactions for an address? And so we have an indexer for that. We've done that on other networks. We may bring that to Tezos, but that, again, that's an open source separate project, which you can choose or not to use or not. But for everything that you're going to use for the Learn Pathway, that will all be standard RPC. So nothing special here. And if you're using your own node, that's great. If you want to use ours, that's great too. There was another question from Zergel. I don't know how you say that. I've seen your name a bunch, but I've never said it out loud. How long does it take for the blockchain to produce a new block? And that was answered already by someone, and the answer was between 60 seconds. It'll be 30 seconds in Granada. I don't know what that means. Why would there be a difference?
Because it's an amendment. So essentially, like with the on-chain governance, we have what we call amendments, which allow us to make our protocol evolve. And so with every amendment, we kind of integrate new features, whether it's scalability, privacy. For example, the past one, which was called Edo, was about privacy. So,
Very good. So there you go. Right now 60, soon 30 seconds. So thanks for those questions. All right, so I want to move to my final question, which is the magic wand question. If you had a magic wand, you could change anything about blockchain or about Tezos or about what you're working on. I'm giving you the wand. What are you doing with it?
Great question. Hard question. Kossi, you want to start?
If I can say something, we would like to build a strong community. We are looking for more initiative that can help on the tokenization of, and so we would like to see people onboard more and onboard more teams that have the capacity to have big companies to tokenize the assets, and more people maintain NFTs, more project joining, and seeing a marketplace maybe where people who are not familiar with crypto can trade NFTs, and maybe enabling fiat stablecoin payment on the top of Tezos, allowing this. Now, I can say that quickly. I don't know if you want to say something more, Alexia.
That's great. Yeah. Alexia, you want to go?
Well, is your question relative to Tezos or to the overall blockchain ecosystem?
You've got the magic wand. You get to wave it however you want.
Okay, so
or you can do both.
Okay, so I think I would say perhaps maybe more privacy, but this is not a technical problem because we kind of have the solutions out there. I mean, with ZKP, zero knowledge proofs, etc. I think it's more about an education with the actors that we build solution with to try and push more privacy for the users and for the different entities that are going to be put on top of the blockchain or using blockchain.
Yep, that makes sense. So before we go, you each mentioned one thing I want to ask a quick question about. So Kossi, you mentioned a stablecoin. Have you seen stablecoin projects emerging on Tezos that we should be looking at?
Yes. Stablecoins, I imagine on already we have an example of Colibri, who is on algorithmic stablecoin, and there are also more hard-baked USD stablecoin like USDTZ. And also TZ BTC, who is a rapid coin on Tezos, and so we are waiting for more to come.
Got it. And then go ahead, Alexia.
We also had the Lug, which was the first Euro-pegged kind of coin, which came out pretty recently.
Great.
Yeah,
sure. Go ahead, Kossi.
Yeah, sure. I forget this one, but I work on it. Yes, we have this project, and this is a project we really like, seeing corporates coming on Tezos, producing stablecoin, Euro-pegged coins. We are really open for that, and we want it's become something people see more on the chain. So we also had a project with logical pictures. I don't know if you hear about it. So with this one, we have a security token and an utility token, so people can use it to a kind of royalties to go to cinema and use it like that. So this is a project like that who are raising up on Tezos. We are waiting more for that.
Got it. So I want to ask about the stablecoin, and then Alexia, you also mentioned zero knowledge proofs. Are there any projects we should be watching who are working on zero knowledge proofs on Tezos?
Well, we have a privacy team at Nomadic Labs, which basically helps projects implement the solution So far, we have a few, how can I say, like a stack that is existing, that is being implemented in some product. Some exciting ones coming up, but not public yet. So unless I'm missing something, Kossi, maybe you can correct me.
We also use zero knowledge in the as amendment to enable sapling. We call it sapling, and this is a zero knowledge protocol that use two elliptical curves, and that allow to make transfers, protected transfer or shielded transfer, while allowing to guarantee the visualization of transaction to trusted third parties.
Yeah, actually, we're going to see that technology being implemented in quite a few SSI projects. So, decentralized identity related projects indeed.
Got it. While we were chatting here, we got two more questions. We'll see if we can address these real quick before we sign off. In your opinion, what is the best use case for Tezos? Is it general purpose like Ethereum? We talked about this a little bit, and let me try to answer it and correct me if I get it wrong. I think Tezos is supposed to be a general purpose blockchain. There's going to be lots of things that are built on it. You have some things that are already showing up, and there's some special tools built into the blockchain that'll make some things easier, but it's not supposed to be just for NFTs. It's supposed to be a general purpose blockchain with lots of apps built on top of it. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Great.
If I may add something very quickly, I think the vision of Tezos is to try and focus on projects that are long lasting. As in, I don't know if you know, but we have worked a lot with corporates and big institutions in trying to push the creation of blockchain-based projects that would last and that are not necessarily just hype-based, if I may say. So this is something that is really ingrained into Tezos' personality.
Yep. Okay, great. Thanks for that. And then there's one more question. We talked about the protocol upgrade for Grenada, however you say it. There's a question here. Is there any plan to reduce the baking requirement so more people can participate? Any thoughts on that? Have you seen any discussion around that?
So I know that it was already reduced once, and I think that was one of the first amendments that we had. That is a great question. I am not sure whether you have more elements on that.
Yes. In the beginning, you have to have 10,000 ETZ before you become a baker. And right now, you can just use we reduce it with an amendment to 8,000. And more work are coming to see the perspective to
reduce it further.
Reduce it. So, but the good things on the liquid proof of stake is that you can, if you can't become a baker, you can delegate your ETZ to someone who is a baker, and without losing your ownerships on your ETZ, and you can get rewards in the percentage of delegation you made, and it's something quite good. You can participate. And also by doing that, you participate to the on-chain amendment too, because on trust big baker, you can provide your voice to make the amendments happen. So it's something good for the community too. So
very good. Yeah, good. Well, thanks for the questions we got in the Q&A section, and thanks for answering them. I think we've covered everything that was open to get to today. We talked about how people new to Tezos or just wanting to go through this tutorial can use the Figment Learn Pathway. It's learn.figment.io. Go through the Tezos Pathway, and if you complete it, you'll get rewarded with $20 worth of XTZ. And if you want to create tutorials for the other people to go through, we'll reward you with $500 worth of XTZ. And we have a community Discord. If you get stuck and you have any questions, please hop in there. Alexia or Kossi, any sort of parting thoughts or any asks you have for the community or people watching?
Well, get tuned for the upcoming news and projects.
Yeah, very good. For me, I want people to be more open for Tezos adoption and so we can make blockchain projects coming fastly, happening fastly, and that can change the mind of people who are right now saying that blockchain is not the solution, but this is time. This is the Web3 revolution. So I want them to.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time. I've had a great time chatting with you, and we will see you online. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.